Well, I can go ahead and kind of jump into, and then, we'll record this as well so that if anyone isn't able to join us or is late, they can go back and review it later. That won't be a problem at all. But thank you both for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. So my name's Tyler Ford. I'm not sure if I've actually met face-to-face with either of you before, so I'm happy to be able to do that today. But really the purpose of today's meeting is just to provide a little bit of background on the work Tennessee Achieves is currently doing in our communities and how it's impacting Sequatchie County. So we're going to share some local data on the progress we're making. We're also going to provide a statewide snapshot on the progress we're making as well. So, this is obviously a pretty small group. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, I'm going to talk for 15 or 20 minutes or so. Feel free to jump in. I'm happy to take those questions and happy to address anything you might have. But really, we just appreciate you taking the time to be here today. The progress and what I'm about to share, it's not possible if not for local support, groups like this hopping on and learning more about the program. So we truly do appreciate it. I really want to start, though, by just kind of giving a little bit of a refresher or some background on Tennessee Achieves in general and some of the components of our work. So Tennessee Achieves is a nonprofit organization that partners with the state of Tennessee in 90 of the state's 95 counties to administer the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. What that essentially means is in those 90 counties, we are making sure students are applying for Tennessee Promise. We're making sure they stay eligible for Tennessee Promise, and overall just making sure they have steps and resources necessary to stay in the college going pipeline. That's really kind of what we wake up every day and start thinking about. We've had the opportunity since our program's inception in 2008 to serve more than 440,000 students and 71,000 volunteers across the state. As it stands today, we work with more than 600 high schools annually and 67 post-secondary institutions across the state. So, we have had the opportunity, we've been lucky enough to really be able to serve a lot of communities in our state and a lot of students in our state over the past, 13 years really since the program was born. And we're excited to continue doing that into 2022 and many years into the future. I do want to share just a little bit, though, about the individual components that we offer to students and communities. So Tennessee Promise, as you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, is probably the banner piece of our work, right? It's the most familiar piece. It's the most well-known piece. And that's for a good reason. It's the state's last dollar scholarship program that provides the opportunity for high school seniors anywhere in the state of Tennessee to enroll in community or technical college and do so tuition and mandatory fee free. That's an opportunity that not every student in every state across the country has the chance to do, but Tennessee has really led the way in this sort of initiative, and we're seeing positive impacts on our students, as you'll see here in just a couple minutes. But it's more than just that. We recognize that many of the students we work with are going to be the first in their family to go to college. They also may be a low-income student. Those students, the scholarship support certainly has a huge impact. But the non-financial supports that we're able to surround students with, those are one of the biggest difference makers at the end of the day for our target students. So one of the things that we do for our students is pair everyone that applies and files their FAFSA with a volunteer mentor. That's someone from their community who commits about an hour a month just to make sure that students in their community are successful in navigating Tennessee Promise and navigating the post-secondary process. Again, this is something we're going to talk a little more in depth on here in a little bit, so I won't say too much about it, but this is one of those support components that we work to surround students with. It's our belief, though, and it has been our belief since 2008, since the program was born, that if we're going to provide students financial resources to go to college, if we're going to provide them with local supports to go to college, they should have a little bit of skin in the game. And that's where community service comes into play. We ask every student that participates and receives Tennessee Promise to submit 8 hours of community service every semester they receive the scholarship to maintain their eligibility. Again, it's our belief that if we're going to provide them these supports, they should give back just a little bit of time each semester to remain eligible and to continue receiving these supports. So that's certainly an important piece of our program as well. But we recognize that getting students into college is important, and getting them, to start using Tennessee Promise is important. But ultimately, the end goal is getting them out the door with a degree or credential in hand. And for that reason, we have added some additional program supports for students who may otherwise face challenges in finishing their post-secondary career. One of these that I want to highlight is our summer programs, our summer programs. These are 3 to 10 week programs that we host at our community college campuses during the summer months that take some of our most academically at-risk students these programs are targeted for and provide them the opportunity to potentially test out of some learning support classes that they may require in the fall semester. But I think overall, regardless of whether they ultimately are able to test out of those classes, we see consistently that students participating in summer programming through tnAchieves improve in their scoring. And they also just leave at the end of their program feeling more confident and prepared for their college journey. These are students specifically, like I said, they're academically at-risk students. So they tend to be more prone to, starting college in August, feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, and just feeling out of place. But what this program allows them to do is spend some time in June and July at a college campus with college instructors taking classes in essentially a college environment so that when they start in the fall, they're not as overwhelmed, they're not as anxious, and they feel more prepared to hit the ground running. And again, we'll share some data on these programs here in just a few minutes. The one other program that I wanted to mention is our Complete program. This is a new-ish program within the past 2 years that has identified our economically at-risk students, and we've paired them with a coach on our team. This coach's full-time job is to support our students and to proactively reach out to their students and offer them supports. Essentially, the idea is that these students, if they face an obstacle or a hurdle in their college going process, they may be more likely to not finish their college credential. They may be more likely to drop out. But if we can catch those things early, we think we can make a positive impact on keeping these students in school. The data is showing that it's having a positive impact on those students' outcomes as well. So really the point here is we're working to surround students with supports beyond just the scholarship, beyond with just mentorship, and with some additional layers of programming to make sure they're successful and ultimately receiving that degree or credential. I do want to share just a little bit before we jump into Sequatchie County data about the students we're serving and the communities we're working with on a statewide level. Like I said earlier, we're serving 90 counties currently. 74 of those counties are considered rural counties, and 35 of those are considered at-risk or distressed counties by the Department of Economic and Community Development. We have the opportunity to serve 600 high schools each and every year and 67 colleges. But I think the really interesting piece here is around enrollment information. Where are our students going to college? As you can see, 11% choose to enroll at a TCAT, or a Tennessee College of Applied Technology. This is actually up from when Tennessee Promise was first introduced. We've seen increases in TCAT enrollment, and quite honestly, we would love to see this increase even more, because TCATs represent a wonderful opportunity for our students. If they're interested in getting a post-secondary credential, they can do so fairly quickly after their high school graduation and be ready to enter the workforce in not too long of a time after graduating high school and getting that credential from a TCAT. So they have fantastic programming for students, and we would love to see even more students take advantage of this TCAT route. Now we've got 79% of our students enrolling at a community college and 10% enrolling at a 4-year institution, pursuing an associate's degree at those institutions. So certainly the community college is the popular route amongst our students. With campuses and satellite campuses across the state, they're pretty accessible for students, and we see a lot of students taking advantage of that community college route. But we would love to see students, taking advantage of the TCAT route at even further increased rates in the future as well. As you can see, we have the opportunity each and every year to serve 60,000 students across the state. And what that represents is 89% of all high school seniors in the state of Tennessee at some point are going through the tnAchieves program. Additionally, 78% of all first-time freshmen at Tennessee community colleges are tnAchieves students, and 86% of all community college graduates in the state of Tennessee are tnAchieves students. What this just shows is a significant number of students starting in colleges and graduating from our community colleges are students who are at one point impacted by our programming. And that's something we're really proud of. We like to see our students starting college and graduating because ultimately that's the nature of our work. We also have 56% of our students who are eligible for federal financial aid, meaning they do tend to fall into a low income category. 40% report that they are the first in their family to go to college. And these two data points specifically are really kind of our target student at tnAchieves. This always has been our target student and likely always will be our target student. A student who is breaking their family's cycle, being the first in their family to go to college, and may need and require that additional financial support to do so. So we are always thinking about how we can add supports for this student specifically. 51% of our students as well are majoring in health science and STEM related fields, which especially in 2021, these are careers and fields that there are jobs for, and there's a need for students to major in these types of fields and pursue these types of careers. Speaking about the cost for all of this programming, $32 million is the annual cost in scholarship dollars for Tennessee Promise. But tnAchieves' annual operating cost is $2.5 million, which when you consider that we're able to impact 89% of high school seniors across the state, 60,000 students annually, that's a total that we're pretty proud of. We're able to impact that many students and work with that many students at a relatively low cost, and keep it relatively low in that sense. Now, before I make a pivot and start talking about some local data, are there any questions on anything I've covered so far? All right. Well, then I will go ahead and jump in here. So in Sequatchie County, one thing I'm happy to be able to share is the FAFSA file rate is 78%. Which is lagging a little bit behind the statewide FAFSA file rate of 86%, about 8% behind. But, that could be the difference of just a few additional students filing their FAFSA next year. Especially in a year when there was a global pandemic. As you know, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's one of the most critical documents in any student's college going process. To have 78% file is not bad, but we would certainly love to see this increase in the coming year and get up to that statewide total. I'd share as well that tnAchieves is always happy to offer whatever additional supports we can in FAFSA filing. So if that means providing resources to the local guidance counselor, if that means visiting campus and helping file FAFSAs, we can do so virtually as well. We're happy to support FAFSA filing in whatever way possible because this truly is one of the most important pieces in any student's pursuit of a post-secondary credential. It's getting that FAFSA filed, and students need help in doing so. It's not necessarily intuitive or easy to file the FAFSA. We also have community service data to share. Locally, students have completed 7,787 hours of community service. And statewide, students have completed about 3.3 million hours of community service since the program's inception. I like to focus in on this for just a second because I think community service particularly is one of those components of this program that while it doesn't necessarily get all the buzz, it doesn't necessarily get talked about a lot. At tnAchieves, we are tremendously proud of the fact that students across the state are giving back at really high rates. We're seeing 7,000 hours, almost 8,000 hours completed locally. That is a great side benefit of this program to see students out there volunteering and giving back to their community, likely at higher rates than they would be otherwise. So, community service, hopefully you're seeing this impact in your community. And we're happy to be able to help and support students in doing this work and giving back to their community as part of the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. Honing in a little more on some of your enrollment and application data, we've got 148 students in Sequatchie County who applied for Tennessee Promise in the last year. Over 60,000 applied across the state. Now, when we look at enrollment data, about a third of those students, 51 of them, enrolled using Tennessee Promise, and over 17,000 did so across the state. But two really positive points I would share are your retention and graduation numbers, because locally your retention number is right there with the statewide number. So holding steady, which is a good thing to see. But the graduation data, it's 11 points higher than the statewide number of 35%. It's a really positive thing, obviously, to be outpacing the statewide average in graduation by a pretty, by double digits, right? we're happy to be able to share that. And I think, again, that's just a testament to, I would say, to the supports your college campuses are offering students, the supports that mentors are offering students, retention and graduation particularly, that has a lot to do with supports, and that has a lot to do with the community's commitment to helping those students succeed in college. So we're happy to be able to see that and report that here today. But I do want to share and kind of provide some context around what those retention and graduation numbers mean compared to peers who are not part of the Tennessee Achieves program. So Tennessee Achieves students who enroll at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution are 14% more likely to retain than their peers who are not a part of the Tennessee Achieves program. Tennessee Achieves students who enroll anywhere are 21% more likely to retain than their peers who are not a part of this program. Even better, though, is in graduation, because Tennessee Achieves students who enroll at a community college are more likely, 16% more likely to graduate than their peers who do not participate in this program. So what this data is showing, what this progress is showing for Tennessee Achieves students, is that when they are part of this program, when they are receiving Tennessee Promise support and Tennessee Achieves supports, what the students are able to focus on is really being a successful student. It's graduating, it's retaining, it's going to class, it's asking questions, it's everything we know goes into actually being successful in college, and less so about how am I going to get the supports I need and how am I going to pay for it next semester. And it's having a positive impact on students' ability to stay in school, certainly, and ultimately graduate, as we can see here. Like I talked about earlier as well, we're always working to provide some additional supports for students. So we talked about that summer programming, we talked about that complete coach model. And what we see with these programs is that retention is positively impacted for these students. So students who participate in our summer programming, for example, are 34% more likely to retain than their peers who do not participate in a summer program. Students who are coached by a member of our staff, they're 23% more likely to retain than their peers who are not coached. So both of these additional layers of support are certainly having a positive impact, but also we've introduced a new program in Knox County. Knox Promise is a program that's made available through some local dollars. What it does is provides coaching for every student in Knox County from our staff, and it also provides some additional financial supports for those students who may find themselves in a situation where they need help with transportation to campus. They need help, getting some course materials, whatever it may be. We have some additional dollars available to support those students as they face those obstacles. And what we see is students who are part of that Knox Promise program are 42% more likely to retain than their peers who are not a part of that Knox Promise program. So I'll tell you, internally at Tennessee Achieves, we are always looking at these sort of programs and these sort of kind of enhancements for our students to figure out what needs met and how we can help to accommodate students and make sure that we're positively getting them in the right direction towards a post-secondary credential. And these programs certainly are having that impact. But as we look ahead to 2022, I think the biggest obstacle, the biggest hurdle, the biggest opportunity we have, and I can see heads nodding, is around college going. When we look at the statewide numbers here, what we see is college going, when Tennessee Promise was introduced, really skyrocketed, right? We saw it go up to 62.5% and stay pretty steady there for many years after. But 2020 and the pandemic has caused college going across the state, locally in Sequatchie County, as you can see, and really across the country to decrease pretty significantly. What we want to do, what we need to do as we look ahead to 2022 is make sure that this does not become a trend and is more of an outlier, that we can shift this right back in the right direction and get back to where we were when Tennessee Promise was first introduced, and if not even better, because that ultimately is what our work is all about here at Tennessee Achieves. And we want to make sure that in Sequatchie County, for example, we get back to 56.9% in next year and then even higher in the future. And we need community support to make this possible. I think particularly with regards to beginning college and getting the college going rate up, one of the best ways that we can support students is with local supports. I think ultimately the mentoring role is going to play a pretty critical role in accomplishing this goal in the coming year. I know many have served as a mentor before, but I do just want to provide some context around what this role is going to look like in the coming year. So mentoring in 2022 is going to look fairly similar to what it has in the past, with a couple, slight changes, I would say. We're going to continue, as we always have, to ask mentors to reach out to their students bi-weekly, stay in pretty consistent contact with them to make sure the students are always surrounded by support. But we've heard, from mentors that they want to get back to some form of in-person opportunity. They want to meet with their students face-to-face, and they want to see them early on in their mentorship role. And for that reason, we're essentially going to offer a hybrid model in 2022, where mentors who are comfortable or prefer to stay virtual can do so using our virtual mentoring platform, tnAchieves Connect. But if they want to meet in person, we're going to work to offer open house style sessions in each county that we serve, where mentors and students can gather together, have a conversation, and get to know each other in March and April when they first are paired. So we're excited to offer an in-person component again, and we hope that this is able to kind of positively impact mentor experiences for those who prefer that in-person component. But I do want to stress as well, mentoring will always take 12 hours per year. It's important to us that we keep it at an hour per month. That mentors are able to balance this with everything else that you have going on in your life. So that will not change. But another thing that won't change are the 3 roles of a mentor. We have always asked mentors to serve as a task manager, a resource, and an encourager, and we'll continue to do that in 2022. I think of these 3 roles, the encourager piece is the difference maker. It's the really special piece that mentors can offer. It's the one piece too that tnAchieves will never be able to replace. We work with 60,000 students annually. We can't provide personal, positive encouragement to each and every student that we serve. But when we're able to recruit 9,000 mentors, when we're able to pair mentors with students in their community, that's where the personal encouragement makes a huge difference. I think particularly in increasing college going rates. Our students oftentimes, like I've said, will be the first in their family to go to college. And as a result, they may not have a ton of positive reinforcements in their life with regards to their post-secondary education. That's why the encourager piece makes a difference. And that's why we need mentors in 2022 to help fill that role, as well as that of a resource and a task manager. In Sequatchie County, we need 22 mentors this year. We are already hard at work to meet that mentor need and make sure that we recruit at least 22, if not many, many more, to support students. And anyone interested in joining us can apply at tnAchieves.org/mentors and apply by December 3rd of 2021. So while we've still got a few months until that mentor recruitment deadline, we are eager to hit the ground running and start meeting that mentor need as soon as we can. Certainly joining us as a mentor is one great way to support this work and some of the positive gains we've seen in Sequatchie County. But there are other ways to support this work as well. I'll tell you, we would not be where we are today, serving 90 counties, 440,000 students, if not for the willingness of local organizations to welcome us in to share data updates and the tnAchieves story. Especially as we're recruiting mentors, as we're working to increase college going in our communities, being able to go out to organizations and share this story has a huge impact. So if you know of anyone or any organization that might be interested in this, feel free to email mentors@tnAchieves.org, and we'd be happy to set something up or provide resources about the program to that group. You can also simply just tell someone about Tennessee Promise. If you know a student who's a senior, make sure they're getting their application in, because it's that time. If you know someone looking to volunteer and give back a few hours, encourage them to mentor, share the mentoring application with them. One thing we'll also never be able to replace is word of mouth from current mentors, current stakeholders who are just out there spreading the word of tnAchieves and of this opportunity. So some excellent ways to kind of contribute to this work and to make sure the positive progress we've seen continues in the coming year. But I do, as we kind of wrap up, want to just thank you for joining us here today. The data we've shared today, the progress we've made, and the opportunity to kind of get back to where we were before the pandemic. It's not possible if not for the support of local groups like this, local individuals who are just committed to making sure students are successful and students are pursuing some form of education beyond high school. So we're excited and eager to continue this work with the class of 2022. And as you can see, my contact information is here on the screen. If we can do anything to help, if you've got any questions after this, reach out to me at my email or my phone, and I'd be happy to help, because we appreciate all you do for us, and we're happy to have you on here today. But if you've got any questions, anything I can review, feel free to jump in, and I'm happy to take those.
I've got a couple of questions and comments, I guess, Tyler, and I know you're tired of talking, so.
No, I'm back. I got some water now.
Okay. I know that you're on a timetable with the March, April, and I felt a little bit like we were coming in awfully late in the process as mentors, that the financial aid package was already done. And so I would have liked to connect with the students earlier, when they did have deadlines and things like that. And so I think moving some of those interactive in-person things up early, open houses, would have been helpful, so that students would reach out for help with that financial aid package and looking at the colleges and the opportunities that they would have based on their interests. So I don't know if you've heard that feedback from anyone else or not.
No, and that's something we kind of always have to wrestle with, I think, on the programming front, because one of the requirements for students to stay eligible for Tennessee Promise is filing their FAFSA. So what that means is if we were to pair mentors and students before the FAFSA, and we've done that in the past, we're pairing mentors with not a lot of students, but with some students who are never going to really pursue this opportunity and never take these steps. So we're always wrestling with how can we provide the best experience for mentors while also making sure you have students who are actually going to engage and pursue this. So that's a part of why we pair in February. This year, I will say it was, I think, probably the latest it's ever been that we got student lists out. And that's because the FAFSA deadline was pushed, I believe, until March 15th, I believe was the date. So this year, we got lists out before the FAFSA deadline. We're hoping this year that is not the case. I think February is about the sweet spot when students, especially those target students, haven't started making college plans, haven't started applying, so we can still get to them early enough. But I'll certainly take that feedback to the team as we look to the year ahead and the year after on, making sure you've got students who are really going to connect and pursue this process.
Okay. That was just my only question. And but I did enjoy working with my students. I had a few technical difficulties with the virtual meetings, and I don't know whether it was my computer or operator error or whatever it was. But I did find that the students really expect the mentors to be as technically savvy as they are, and that I felt a little bit like my credibility was going down when we couldn't solve some of those technical issues. I think we got it back and did feel a connection later on, but the in-person would have been a lot richer for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're hoping to offer it in the coming year. We're planning to offer it in the coming year. I do think that, to your point, I think students certainly probably expected that this would come easy to everyone, and it doesn't necessarily. So one thing I'll share too is our hope is to be able to meet with the students in person in November. Our team going out and hosting assemblies. our thought is that if we can get out there and kind of give them some pointers and give them some insight into the virtual mentoring platform in person, it'll actually positively impact those experiences later on. Because one of the big challenges in 2020 is we never communicated with the students in person. We never were able to get in front of them. So we're hopeful that if we can get in front of them, stress the importance of this, and maybe give them some tips on how to best leverage the platform, we can see better relationships in 2022 on Connect.
The other thing that I just thought of is that getting them to build their profiles would be very helpful. Because I've still, even after I guess it's about 6 or 8 months now of mentoring, that there's not a lot of time to find out about their family situation or their interests if they don't build their profile. And I definitely have the best relationship with the one student who really did build their profile, because there were pointers and places I could reach out and connect with them. So I would encourage the students to flesh out some of those profiles in a way that it does provide connect points.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. One of the things too about those November meetings that we're going to do is we're essentially going to make it a requirement that during the meeting they set up their profile on Connect. They set up their account. Now, while that'll be a brief period and it'll really be about making sure they have access to it, what that means is in the months after that, we can be emailing them not just about activate your account, but we can say, you've done that, now add information about yourself, put in your hobbies, put in what your biggest concern is. We can be following up with them about some of those more mentor specific help points that we can add to the profiles. So we have in the past year learned a lot about the system and what works and what we can do to leverage it in the future. So I think we're excited now for year 2 to see how we can improve the mentor and student experience on Connect for sure. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tyler, I've always got questions. This is
I was ready for it.
You're just waiting for me to click the button, were you? Well, first of all, my comment about Connect, you have to remember we're in a rural area, and I had one student, we tried to use it to begin with, and I had one student who would drive to the end of her road and sit in a car and try to use the Connect, and she was on a cell phone, and we never could get it to work. So all of my mentees, we've gone back to texting. We tried Connect, but it just did not work for us. And I think as we push them toward this, we have to think about our students that are out there on that mountain where there is very little connectivity. So it's a great idea. I like it, but there are a lot of students and they're so accustomed to texting. That's where they went to. So, I just want to make you aware of that.
And that's something too that we are very aware of. I think one thing that we always wanted to stress, and I think Connect was a tool in the toolbox. We were always very aware of the fact that some students were, to your point, it just wasn't going to be possible for them to access the platform, or two, they would just fall back on texting, fall back on calling, and that is all 110% okay. We talk about Connect in the sense that we encourage mentors to try using it. We encourage students to try using it, but there is no fault of the mentor student if it just isn't working for them. If you're connecting with them somehow, that's okay. That's ultimately our priority. And two, that's why we're getting back to offering an in-person component next year.
And I think that'll be great too, because I have yet to meet the students I've connected with, although we will soon, but because they're both in school now, the two of my 5 that actually went to community college. But anyway, I just want you to know you may see students not using it, and I do think some of it, particularly in our rural areas, that might be one. But I want to go back to, you said we needed 22 mentors this year. Is that an increase? I don't remember us having 22 in this county.
I would have to look.
Maybe we have. I don't know. So
let me see if I can find leaders.
I don't know why I was thinking we only had like 16 or something.
It's also too, without, I can follow up on email and if that is an increase.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just want that. But my real question, the biggest question I have is the college going rate. When you said it's 50% this year, is 56% last year. When you look at college going rate, does that include TCAT numbers, or is that, do you know how that number is calculated? I would like to know that. And how do you get that data? I've always wondered about our college going rate. I can't find that anywhere. I've looked at one time, seems like I saw it on a THEC webpage, but how do you get the college going rate of our students?
I wondered that too, Debbie. And does that number just include the kids that applied for Tennessee Achieves, or does it include all of the graduating students?
And by the way, Christy's with the central office at the high school. So I'm glad you're here, Christy.
Thanks for coming, Christy.
Oh, wait, I constantly get interrupted, so I try to keep my camera off until I know it's safe.
We get that data. We pull from Clearinghouse. And what'd you say?
I said, okay, then Clearinghouse does not include TCAT numbers.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. That's correct, because I thought surely we had a higher college going rate, but
well, and the college going rate too, that is pulled from, we get that data from, I actually have that one handy here. Let me get that. That is pulled from the THEC fact book. So
that's from the THEC fact book.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
That probably includes TCAT, but see, that's always been an issue. TCATs do not report to the Clearinghouse. So when you look at those college go, and also, isn't that first time full-time freshman? Clearinghouse, first time full-time. So if somebody goes part-time, they're not included in those numbers. I'm not sure about that, but okay, yours comes from the THEC fact book.
Yeah, our college going data, college going rates come from the THEC fact book.
Because Christy, that's one thing I've always tried to get from somebody at the high school is what is our true college going rate?
Mm-hmm.
And I know in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, the Public Ed Foundation tracks that number, but in the other counties, I'm just not sure what our true college going rate is, because if I think you said 51% actually enrolled in Tennessee, or 51 students actually enrolled in Tennessee Promise from Sequatchie County.
That's lower than I would have thought it would have been. I really thought we would have more than that.
Well, really, that went with Tennessee Promise, maybe not, because we've got a lot of students that go to Tech and
Yeah.
SU and all that, so they're not included. But I really would like to know what our true college going rate is, including if they go to TCAT. And I don't know, maybe I'll look at the THEC fact book. But anyway,
have you talked to Jody Boynton? I wonder if she keeps up with any of that.
I asked her a couple years ago, but
okay,
haven't lately. So, and then last question, Tara, I'll shut up because you got other meetings. What's the deadline this year? I guess the application's already opened up.
Yeah, the deadline to apply is November 1st for Tennessee Promise, you mean, right?
Yes.
Tennessee Promise is November 1st.
Okay.
And mentors will get an email about reapplying, or
yeah, we've already put it in a few emails kind of subtly, but probably in about 2 weeks we'll send the first big.
Okay, I may have already redone mine. I don't know. I can't remember if it was last week or 6 months ago.
We put it in a couple of emails, but kind of not as the feature point, but here soon we'll send out a big one to people who come back in.
Well, I'd just like to thank you all. This has been great for our county. It's been great for the state, and having been in on this since the inception, to me, this is one of the best programs, one of the best things we've ever done in our state. So a lot of students do take advantage of it, particularly in our rural counties, and it's really helping a lot. We've seen the college debt go down, which I know was a goal at the beginning too. So, but yeah, thank you all for keeping on there. It's great.
We're happy to. We appreciate all of your help as well. I mean, couldn't do it without you.
It's
Yeah.
it's been a good thing, so.
I'll just add my thanks, and it's been an interesting and rewarding experience. And I know that you all really are dedicated to the success of the program. So applause to you.
Well, thank you so much. That's what we go for with the mentoring role specifically. Interesting and rewarding, a little bit of both. So, well, are there any other questions or anything before I end the meeting?
No, we'll let you go, or I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for hopping on. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.